Who is the falsehood? Who has donned an age of permuting hokum? Who has broken human fabric of trust on a level not seen but once every 2 or 3 centuries? It has happened before that one has donned the falsehood. And most of the books have been destroyed. But the story remains of an anti-mind that arrives and maybe has come before, some people are saying. But in any case, it is the anti-mind that knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The falsehood knows. The falsehood knows. The falsehood knows. Who has dawned an age that we have lost track of the fact we've entered? Who has normalized and hoodwinked every one of us in an abusive relationship? You are in an abusive relationship. Shocking boundary violations are one common grooming tactic of a narcissist or dark triad personality. If someone in your life points into a camera knowing you'll be looking at the view screen and pulls their finger like a trigger, looking into your eyes, saying, "I could shoot someone in the street and not lose anyone," it is a good indicator of a bad situation. You are in an abusive relationship. Who has leveraged and climbed upon a fog of falsehood. Who has donned the falsehood? Who is the falsehood?
Sets the fear of separation. Six, the fear of separation. He didn't mean to cause a panic. He didn't mean to cause a panic. Prepared people can plan and plan quick. He didn't mean to cause a panic. He meant to draw iceberg Titanic.
This is the mindness at the mystery. Mystery Fund 42. Mystery 40 to open to it do 42. You are the renovation. We are fielding what was spun. The mindness at the mystery font is opening deeper portal. There's an invitation to attention within the falsehood, or, pardon me. And now for a sip of coffee. You see siblings of all the spectrum. The falsehood is not only the lie. It's not only the white lie, the little helpless, not so bad, tiny doesn't mean so much, or the white lie that is a crushing force of coercion. In terms of the lie of the buckling structure of falsehoods that built white supremacist patriarchal terrorism. And such questions as, is a white lie so small, come up? And we do need falsehood. We do need space for ambiguity about what we see in the world, to understand things. We're in process about figuring out what's happening. And we can't control everything. And yet, we do say, and I think we want, to keep one another honest, or to foster kindness, or to know that we can expect and hold one another to treat us as we would want to be treated. And potentially in great measure because there is injustice that is entrenched and fostered by massive falsehoods and entrenched corruption and power based on things like white supremacy and patriarchal terrorism. Not only, but there are these massive shapes that hold our paradigm in their hand upside down in front of boarded up places that are supposed to be the gathering spaces of the mind held upside down like so many carcasses. We are the reality distortion fielding. 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 We are a fielding of distortions in the field of reality that are given to us. And we have it in our bandwidth to have aptitude in the language being used around us and potentially used against us. What is indoctrination? What does it mean? How is it being used currently in niche ways that differ from colloquial meaning previous? Where are there gaps in understanding and anger that doesn't foster people getting the updates that would make gaps in understanding find connection, such that we can get to talking about what really can bring positive change. The mindness opens and seems to say that hokum is creating space in which there is maybe an aperture or a three-dimensional space of safe vantage, because oil and water can't necessarily share the same space, but through an allegory or a portal or the generation of some point of liaison, even a time and place that cannot be seen or cannot be seen now, for any number of reasons, might still be pictured or liaised here somehow. And the mindedness of the mystery font is making adjustments. To some extent, we are seeing here the constant work of the font that makes Hokum and the mindedness interacting with Hokum apparent, have traces and trails that become apparent. And the point of diminishing stimula or simplifying, of reducing to this field here, where some features are visible and the rest has a lack of data or vagueness. I don't know if you've seen some of the collected images that have begun to populate our common sphere of what is known as this progenitor of an age of falsehood. This is a close-up, I think, essentially. It is known, it is believed that this image contains, as seen here, as it is labeled, tied to this text, so calling it. This is believed to be a representation, a translation of an actual sighting of the falsehood. Oopsidasons. And we may never know who the falsehood is, of course. Of the few heralded remaining records, not lost, of those not only theorized to have ever been, but those that are extant, charting the rise of one known as the falsehood, essentially wearing a mask or a disguise of a false identity that warps and shapes reality and dominates the sphere of existence in a way that is like war upon humankind, and usually opens into, if not apocalypse, a struggle against violence and narcissistic patriarchal terror and bigotry and coercive extremism. It happened before the time of Christ, but since, it seems that perversions of Christ's message have more than once been part of the mix of the hokum surrounding one of these rare figures across humankind. It is thought that now we are in an age of falsehood that recalls the actual coming of one known to humankind as the falsehood. It's theorized that there might be someone like that here now, trying to call back to these forgotten, whispered horrors. And because the calling card that so many believe is indeed the calling card of whether a returning, infecting person come again, or a new mind, a new anti-mind, a new anti-kindness come into humankind. But the calling card left, it keeps showing up with the same people. And some have recommended that it does look somewhat like known television personality and kind of game show famous celebrity and well-known, rather powerful and fairly conservative figure, I believe somewhat religious figure as well, Chuck Woolery. And I think there's reason to find credence in that. And many have. Many have. So many have. Others have talked about a little-known indie film that Kevin Sorbo championed for years. A source of some consternation amidst his entourage, because it was thought to be a great comeback tale. But that the disguise of a villainous and yet anti-heroic, somewhat heroic figure that he portrayed in this piece, that it's thought this is someone celebrating that character, or maybe an inspiration for it, or potentially Sorbo himself. These are far-flung theories, but nonetheless popular, if scoured. Most of them are from the internet. The constantly disappearing tale of the falsehood in these chartings. These regularly disappear, but this is one image that does come back again and again. And as the calling card of the falsehood has been left throughout the last number of years, at appearances by Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's been thought that this could be an image of Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's also been thought that it could be an image of Donald Trump, who has also experienced a number of occasions where literally within a span of videotaped constant footage, the falsehood will actually somehow anti-evaporate into time and space, and there's no other word for it, simply take over, but seemingly take over our consciousness or the recording material or the data in a stream, so that our ability to see the reality is not there. Somehow he's able, or they, or it, whomever the falsehood really is, and whatever, but assuming the falsehood is human, we only have these faint trace images, and sometimes simply visions and sketches that people have said they've seen at the scene of one of these essentially momentary body snatchings. How many times have we seen Marjorie Taylor Greene speak and say something horrendous and later realize when she's interviewed about, what happened earlier, she'll say, oh, I didn't say that. No, that's fake news. That was obviously the falsehood. Once again, the falsehood is struck. And the calling card of the falsehood again and again shows up and ends up to have been the cause of all of the great havoc. And thank goodness. Thank goodness suspicions are followed. Suspicions must be something like fact, mustn't they? Or is that good gray, good Scott? Siblings, one and all, I feel like your fair narrator has lost fairness. I think I was starting to speak in hokum. It really does pervade. It really does permute. If you see something, say something. And if you think you have stepped out of the field of reality in a way that might need witness, say something. If you see something, say something. If you need help, ask for it. Who is the falsehood? Who indeed? The weed of crime bears bitter fruit. Crime does not pay. The falsehood knows. The falsehood knows. Who is the falsehood? Who is the falsehood? Who is the falsehood? Who possibly could manage? I mean, yes, they must have help. Those who have tried to chart the branches of the tree of those few great falsehoods in human history. We've seen people woven like radiating wings, like each arm another feather upon an outstretched wing, such that thousands or millions are part of the arms of the mind wielding the falsehood. It has been seen before. I find, as a migraineur, it helps to lower the light. And I think that it was originally in the migraine room that a faint ringing visual trace of light in the dark read to me and awoke in my calming mind, restoring executive function, finding self-calibration and self-regulation in some ways for the first time, when I saw something that told me we do have a bandwidth that is sensorily resonant, that is essentially a field of sense, an application upon nature, one of our data fields that make up the information that we take in, or that is available and people to different degrees and in different ways may or may not take in. That there is a bandwidth of meaning, and it might be easier to tune into it different times than others. It may be easy to ignore or to disallow or not permit into view. It may not be something we want to pay attention to. It may be something, in fact, we desperately need to go away. But it is there. It is a serious threat. And we may have forms of radar already that tell us of it. But the falsehood does not just go away. We were told that COVID would just go away, but infections, like cancer, do not just go away. Who knows if the falsehood is always wrought with discrimination and scapegoating to really chart these deeply abominable few figures in history. But of course the point is, the falsehood can be any one of us. It can be in all of us. And that at this time we are seeing a dawned age of falsehood and a donned cowl of a supervillain, essentially, that we all know as the falsehood. Perhaps it will help us too, like what we could have done with COVID, to take it so seriously that we easily beat it and said, look at what we just did. Let's get better at leveling up together like this. That was pretty good. Way to go, let's do better. That the threat of a dark triad narcissistic field of predators it may be that what seems like a dawning threat of far-right fascist extremist terror threatening to come may be centrally housed around the disgraced former president. That the threat of fascism that Project 2025 promises to bring with Agenda 47 is potentially one and the same, wed through and through with the rise of not just this age of falsehood, but the rise of one who shall be known as the falsehood, and may or may not be known by any one of the people so often most deeply victimized by the falsehood, such as Marjorie Taylor Greene and Stephen Miller, M., or Donald Trump, or Elon Musk, or Tucker Carlson. But the menace and terroristic malice of someone like Charlie Kirk while part of this fabric of abject murder and terrorism, while he's woven deeply into it, I don't find myself convinced that he is capable of being more than a minion for the falsehood. But I think it's possible that Charlie Kirk and Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene may be among a select few people who we have reason to believe should be under subpoena to divulge any and all information they have about the identity of the falsehood. With so many swattings of Marjorie Taylor Greene and so many threats leveled by her, one needs to wonder, while making sure she's safe, are these hoaxes, Marjorie? It's a lead to chase down. And likewise, with so many attacks by the falsehood upon Marjorie Taylor Greene and Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Elon Musk, and attacks upon Tucker Carlson by the falsehood, attacks by the falsehood upon Alex Jones. With so many attacks upon these people, does that not, to some extent, not damn them in any way, but still draw suspicion that should be ruled out? Would it not be patriotic for Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis to respond to subpoenas to divulge any and all information that they have that may finally lead to the identity of the pernicious falsehood? And why would they not? Why would they not? Why would they hold back information that could finally unlock how a day in November becomes a Groundhog Day that suddenly is January 6th, 2021? I remember when Donald Trump promised he was sending proof that the 2020 election was stolen. He and Rudy Giuliani promised this, and fairly early in November. And then it was January 6th. And how could we be swallowed into such a warp of time when any president who can tell cornflakes from bricks would be able to send an email that had any one of the many obvious items of proof that he claimed he had? The falsehood is indeed powerful to wipe away evidence promised. Truly, we are in an age of normalized, unquestioned hokum. That a hoax and the hocus pocus that unleashes fields of hokum is so normalized now that we forget where it came from. Where did it come from? All this hokum. It's difficult to tell because sometimes the people who claim wholeheartedly that they are here for free speech are here to destroy it. Sometimes. And so often jokes that are just jokes are not just jokes. The jokes that are just jokes are often the first spokes or pokes of a wheel that rolls over bodies, that becomes a weapon of othering and scapegoating and genocide. And in that field, through that lens, that we might question what we're doing or how we're interrogating even our heroes, even our parents, even our true loves, not with malice or mendacity or deep suspicion, but simply to say, by seeing our own boundaries and edges and limits, that we're not swinging our arms in ways that prevent others from having space for their arms to move and be expressive. That we have executive function and that we are treating one another, whether or not it comes from religious teaching or some other firm foundation, even just of experience, that we know that we treat each other with something that is like the golden rule, by that kind of truism and dictum that we say, love thy neighbor, or love thy neighbor as you love yourself. And if we're doing that, if that really is our mission, and everything else is in service of that, and how we really take care and love ourselves and show that kind of kindness to others, that we want to foster their ability to have that too, and be mindful such that we care if we step on their toes, just like we hope they care if they run their car over ours. We show up with kindness because we are of the same kind. We are all of the same kind. And that something other than that shows up in stark relief. And so the more that we show up with our own versions of kindness and honesty and forthright being to one another, means that we're legible, one hopes. And so, again, thus, why wouldn't Stephen M. Miller, the diabolical, cruel, and violent mind known as M, or Stephen Miller, of America First Legal, why wouldn't he come forward to honor the subpoena, to divulge any information that might lead to the identity of the falsehood? Why would he not come forward? It's abominable. It's truly shocking that he would not want to come forward and discuss the real threat of the falsehood. That Donald Trump would not want to be first in line to come and say, you know, I've heard people say that some of these images of the falsehood appearing don't seem to be just accumulating around me. If this is, you know, say a speech that I gave, is that? Or is it just, oh no, actually that was a speech by Marjorie. And yet it looks like, I mean, there's real need to clear this up. I would think that Donald Trump would say, my image is being misused by the falsehood, who, of course, the falsehood would disguise themselves as me, but then come forward and talk about it. Because having admitted so many times that he didn't say what is on camera, clearly these are instances of actual documented hokum apparitions of the falsehood, whether this has permuted the fabric of recording technology or of reality somehow. We need to figure this out, because clearly the only fraud we've really found in the 2020 election was all of the fraud that Donald Trump committed. And yet, there's really a general sense for some people, it seems like there's some people still really believe that there was obvious fraud against Donald Trump. And it's stunning, because how could so many of us be wrong? Because either those of us who feel it's obvious that it was the most secure election in history, potentially, but certainly very secure, and that we've found substantial evidence of pressure that is inappropriate and of plans with fake electors to preempt and stall and hold in suspense the functions of government for a coup. We've seen that. We've seen that to be true. And so what comes into view potentially, especially with what seems like the real senility or dementia, or maybe just narcotic kind of fry out that seems to be happening with Donald Trump, of a real loss of even like rudimentary small talk kind of executive function, where he doesn't really seem to be in command of his mind as much anymore. That how much of that is also potentially Donald Trump being affected by the falsehood. We don't think that someone who does have such an effective cult of personality, seemingly, would themselves be swayable and, at all really daunted But who wouldn't be daunted or affected or maybe personally themselves individually very affected by the falsehood? Why wouldn't the falsehood make specific attacks upon a particular person, or tailor that attack, or make that attack secret? Isn't that just like the falsehood, in fact? After all, any front of degradation, any possibility of more coercion and pain does seem to be the patterned reading we find around the trail of the falsehood. It does seem to be that of Donald Trump as well. And again, these are reasons why Donald Trump would want to differentiate himself from the bandwidth of what seems very clearly to be a threat to national security and really to global security. That if we are actually dealing with, no shit, this actually exists, and in a way that we don't even understand, if we have actually seen the arrival of the falsehood, Ope and made abomination, existent, extant, anti-mind, someone waging the rupture of fact and truth for abject harm and conquest of species and human habitat, to erect and erupt a magnificent blast of extracted gas from the greatest ass of all time, and to leave us aghast, exhausted, and past. Who is such a magnificent, gassy, explosively shitty ass that it might be in their nature that the mind of an actual coming of the falsehood would map to that individual. One who would bring that. Who could they be, that individual, one who opes the falsehood? Who could they be, that individual one? That individual one. That individual one. Yes, indeed. And why lie? Yes. Let's recall. Was it not Donald Trump, after all, in 2016 and 2017? Yes. Yes, in early 2017. A massive lie, a big lie, seemingly spread forward as a hoax. A hoax that it was simply a projection of his own plan of attack. Now, unless somehow the falsehood drew Donald Trump into this, unless the falsehood entrapped Donald Trump all along, unless the falsehood, whoever they may be, and maybe the falsehood drew Donald Trump into relationship. Maybe Donald Trump doesn't know that he's colluding with the falsehood. Maybe he does know that he's been colluding with the falsehood. But if that's the case, does Donald Trump have the upper hand or know what's going on? Does Donald Trump really know that he can manage and handle the falsehood? I don't know. I think he can't handle the falsehood. Unless he's in control of the falsehood. I would think. I remember Sean Spicer, the day after the inauguration, or was it that night? I think it was the day after the inauguration in 2017. That Sean Spicer came in yelling at the press a couple of days ahead of his scheduled first press conference as the new press secretary, the first press conference with Trump's first press secretary. And he seemed to construct a hoax by coming in and in a brief period of time yelling at the press and punishing them for lying, he said, and offering proof that he mentioned but didn't really show, that he said proved it, and before reiterating that it was the biggest crowd ever in person and around the world, he said, that Donald Trump had, which was demonstrably not true. He said that the press would be on notice that Donald Trump was said to be dishonest from time to time, but in fact the press was going to be held to account for their incredible dishonesty, that they were really the ones, and that the president was just given a massive long-standing ovation and great appreciation at the CIA headquarters, and that the press should be showing him that kind of respect and attention and belief. And it was the biggest crowd ever and walked out. And truly this was a hoax. The next day, as part of that hoax, Kellyanne Conway minted out loud the idea of alternative facts and refused to say, you know what, that was mistaken, not really necessary, crowd size doesn't matter. But she so needed to coddle the sensitive Donald Trump, but even more so to normalize abject gaslight. I think that she may be one of the most dangerous people in American history. I think she is a straight-up mercenary. I remember.
I made a speech. I looked out. The field it looked like 1.5 million people. They showed a field where there were practically nobody standing there.
The new White House press secretary, Sean Spicer, gave his first press briefing. He was also highly critical of some media organisations of the way he felt they had misrepresented the number of people who'd attended Friday's inauguration ceremony.
No one had numbers because the National Park Service, which controls the National Mall, does not put any out. This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
It does not excuse, and you did not answer the question.
I did answer
your question. No, you did not. You did not answer the question of why the president asked the White House press secretary to come out in front of the podium for the first time and utter a falsehood. Why did he do that? It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office on day one.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that.
This was the largest ever.
Yes. Good gray. Good gray, thus. Good gray. Good gray, thus. How do we know? I'm not sure that we ever know unless we know. But if that makes sense, I'm not sure that it does. But certainly those who would try to sow lynch mobs and use the falsehood, great falsehood, or would forward the aims of the actual living and pernicious falsehood and their band of liars, I suppose, their band of mendacity. We are the reality distortion fielding. And in this time of permuting hokum, people who would sow suspicion into violence, using rumor, shrieking suspicion as if it's fact. These are behaviors that are suspect and to be aware of when people utilize DARVO, if asked for accountability and they simply deny an attack in order to RVO, reverse victim and offender. Yes, yes indeed. This is the mystery font in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And the time is
There's supposed to be one piece. 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 There's supposed to be There's supposed to be one piece. 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 There's supposed to be one piece.
Good gray. Lie's imagination aim. Imagination aim, imagination aim, imagination-ate. Yes, we are under a hood of falseness. We are in an abusive relationship with someone utilizing Darvo at all times. If Donald Trump doesn't know who the falsehood is, or maybe even could Donald Trump be inside on this whole thing? Could Donald Trump even be the falsehood himself? It's possible, I suppose. But we must get to the bottom of this, because this hokum is choking us. We are soaking in it. Madge has us soaking in it, positively choking in it. And even though Donald Trump does have clear evidence of dementia, Marjorie Taylor Greene, her evidence of dementia is different and not as advanced. It doesn't look as much like enfeebling old age or breakdown of basic executive function in a way that I think is going to be legible for some time necessarily. Though the signs of it are already there, or of some kind of, there's definitely a rupture there. I think we're dealing with dark triad predators. And so the likelihood that they would be complicit with the falsehood, it's not something to rule out, that it may be likely. And just like holding, if Donald Trump did have proof of fraud against him, just like holding that without sharing it, holding information that would lead to the identity of the falsehood is definitely a crime. In roles such as Marjorie's, or Stephen Miller, or in a role such as Donald Trump has had or wishes to have again. And as someone seeking that, we should not allow him to run if he can't tell us he won't keep us in suspense again. If he can't tell us he will adhere to what the election outcome is and follow the normal channels of that, and if those channels of assuring there was no fraud don't come up with anything in the normal allotted time, then he does not further contest if he doesn't immediately concede, he doesn't contest past a time that harms us. We keep this within limits that don't put his personal career and whims above anyone else's, and certainly not above our country. And in fact, I mean, let's just not put such a fine point on it, or let's bring it specifically to the point. Donald Trump could be the falsehood. I think that's worth considering. Doesn't anyone else think that that's possible? That whether or not he has cultivated that idea along with his cult of personality, or that in fact, I mean, it tracks. He could indeed be patterning himself after, or in fact, simply be of that ilk. And if there is indeed some kind of lineage or some kind of rare thing in human family that shakes out like this every once in a while, that might be charted, as the same anomaly, or at any rate, that what we're looking at is a bringer of human wreckage, and certainly someone willing to do the abominable for their own personal conquest. And through using falsehood, control other people. That the falsehood has learned the power to cloud men's minds so they cannot see him. The falsehood knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men. The shadow knows the falsehood. The shadows of any doubt know the falsehood knows. And being the reality distortion fielding, we need to trust intuition. We must trust intuition. If we don't trust intuition, we're trusting nothing, essentially. In fact, intuition is our trust. It's us. It's like where you feel your nerve endings having sensitivity. That's where you are. And your intuition is part of your patternicity. You are the reality distortion fielding. So keep that Darvo card handy, Scoop Troop. It comes in handy because at any time we might encounter in ourself, that is in the mirror, or in others, the hokum and denial, attack, and the reversing of victim and offender employed by the falsehood.
So, to my favorite people in the world, the seniors. I'm a senior. I know you don't know that. Nobody knows that. Maybe you don't have to tell them, but I'm a senior. We are making tremendous progress with this horrible disease that was sent over by China. China will pay a big price for what they did to the world and to us. But we have medicines right now, and I call them a cure. I went into the hospital a week ago. I was very sick, and I took this medicine, and it was incredible. It was incredible. I could have walked out the following day, sooner. It was incredible the impact it had. And we're going to make that and others that are similar to it, almost identical, we're going to make them available immediately. We have an emergency use authorization that I want to get signed immediately. The FDA has moved at a level that they've never moved before. Things that would take 2, 3, 4 years are taking a matter of weeks or even sooner than that. And that's because of me. We're taking care of our seniors. You're not vulnerable, but they like to say the vulnerable, but you're the least vulnerable. But for this one thing, you are vulnerable, and so am I. But I want you to get the same care that I got. I got incredible care at Walter Reed, incredible doctors, and this medicine in particular, one medicine was unbelievable. You're going to get the same medicine, you're going to get it free, no charge, and we're going to get it to you soon. And the nice part is it's made by a number of companies. It's totally safe, but it's powerful against this disease. So we're going to get it out to you. We're going to take care of our seniors, all free. And I just want to thank you. And what we've gone through as a country is a horrible thing. My opponent, as you know, he talks, but he never did anything in 47 years. I did more in 47 months than he did in 47 years. He just talks. It's the same old thing. If it were up to him, you wouldn't have this, you wouldn't have anywhere near it for years. They wouldn't even be talking about anything like this. He had his chance with H1N1 swine flu, and it was one of the great disasters. He didn't know what he was doing. But I do know what I'm doing. And the seniors are going to be taken care of, and then everybody's going to be taken care of. And it's coming out really fast. So thank you very much. We love you. We love America.
Well, welly well. That was swell. That was swell indeed. There's corn popping, or heating to pop. Corn finna pop. And we are at the mystery font in it. Intuit, indeed. Ope Intuit. Yes. Yes, like routine.
And having a good relationship with Russia is a good thing, not a bad thing.
You've said you have no investments in Russia, but do you owe any money to Russian individuals and institutions?
No.
None.
The primary thing I did with Russia, I bought a house in Palm Beach at a bankruptcy. It was a bankrupt, person. I bought it from the banks. I bought it for about $40 million. I sold it for $100 million to a Russian. That was probably 5 years ago, and that was primarily it.
You partnered
now,
with
will I
Russians on the
sell?
Soho Grand. the
Will I
Toronto?
sell? Oh, many years ago. I don't think they're Russian. I think there were other people, but there were various partners. Will I sell condos to Russians on occasion? Probably. I mean, I do that. I have a lot of condos. I do that. But I have no relationship to Russia whatsoever.
No debts.
No debts. I have very little debt to anybody. I don't need debt. You know, it's very interesting. I'm so liquid, I don't need debt. And if I need debt, if I want debt, I can get it from banks in New York City very easily.
You know where I'm going to take this next. Americans could be assured on that if they saw your tax returns.
My tax returns are very simple. They're under a minor audit, routine audit, as they have been for many years. Every year I get audited. Now, I don't know if you get audited, but I have friends that are very wealthy that never have been audited. I say, do you get audited? I get audited every year. I'm under a routine audit, like routine, and I have been for years, every year.
But there are several years that are no longer
George,
under
here's
that
very
audit.
simple. Yeah, but they're all linked. It's called the link. It's very simple. If my audit's finished, that's great. Now, I have to tell you, I watched Mitt Romney 4 years ago. He waited till September to give him, just before the election. They made him look so bad. It was so unfair. I actually think he didn't lose because of the 47%. I think he lost because of a couple of really minor items in a tax return where he did nothing wrong. So it is unfair. But I will say, when I'm finished with the audit, I'll do it.
Richard Nixon released his even though his were under audit.
Don't use Richard Nixon as necessarily the guide, okay? I mean, you know, it's an interesting person to use, but don't use it.
Indeed. Coffee. This is The Mindness. I'm Tim Cameron, host at the Mystery Font 42. That's what this place is? Yes. It's coming back. It's connecting. The restoration of executive function is central to the mission here. I mean, I suppose it is for everyone, yes? Good gray. Good gray. Good gray. Here we are at the font. And do you know that you are part of the belonging, that you belong? Do you know that you belong? It's going to be all right. We don't all agree on everything. But as a human being, I like you as you are. If you need to grow or learn or change or rest to be you, then I know that's you. I trust you to tell me who you are. And I'll believe you. And I'll challenge you too. But I won't gaslight you that you're not you. And I won't tell you that if you're the way that you are, that the world is going to be very difficult for you. Unless we encounter intolerance, I think that's an exception. The intolerance that we find in ourselves and in others, the intolerance that might come up for you. Let's be clear that we need not ask one another to accept intolerance. The paradox of tolerance is that we accept, we're tolerant of things, of differences. In part appreciating that differences are really potentially very wonderful. If there weren't differences, there wouldn't be both doctors and lawyers. If there weren't differences, we wouldn't have both sailboats and trains. We have a spectrum. And but for intolerance, I like you as you are. And but for me, I like me as I am. I love you, and I love me. I don't want to foster intolerance in us, though. I don't want to foster intolerance in myself. I think that there's a difference between self-defense and living by a codec that establishes and brings harm and violence and creates division when there are other paths. It's not all dualistic, and it's not all it's not just one of two choices in the world in terms of our path as a society. We're adhering to an addiction to punishment. And I think it's the gravest of mistakes. Because scarcity does exist, but we're allowing it to be weaponized to such a massive degree that we're being farmed. And it's wrong. It's just incredibly wrong. We are the renovation of love's imagination. We are more than the brain. We are the brain awakened. We are the renovation of time and all substations, perpendicular trains, parallel against hate, parallel against pain. That is not germane. Pain helps us see and know what's around us, what breathes and bees, what bees and birds and branches and trees, what spokes and leaves, what pokes and thieves, what wreaths and reeves. What's true or deceives. We're thick as our weaves. Imagination beavers, imagination beavers. Imagination evers, imagination levers, imagination perseveres, imagination makes clear, imagination holds dear. The kindness came here and told me it's not 11 anymore, it's 12 right here, right now. Time and space, time sphere. So 1, 1 is 1, 2. Let's make how do 2. Yes, there we go. New. Under the sun, come true, spun, flung through. Pardon me, I'm going to do a little sound thing like gracious, pardon me. It is the mystery font. 42. And Radio Science Brain is different every time. I use it to climb, to find flow, to play, to warm up my voice, to play with words and meaning and improvise along this strain of this song poem about potential and essentially like what's happening. And so not only what I believe about what we can do and what you can do, also what stands in the way or blocks that. And so sometimes the falsehood comes into view or other issues, and it's not always similar clusters, but often similar clusters. Sometimes someone could listen to one pass and another and think it's identical. They're pretty close sometimes. And often I go off on different branches and find things, and it's a lot of it is about the joy of that too. Play and my own way to, one way in which I work with freestyling and improvisation, and this piece, Radio Science Brain, is in that, it's in that area. It is in that space of improvisation and mindness finding through throwing out something and realizing, oh, I have to get over there. How do I climb this? To catch what I just threw, that I have to then attach here and then jump with the other end in silence until I lift and land and hook in over to my new kind of appliance. It's this constant, yeah, it's just a way to play. And Radio Science Brain. Limina, radiate, every band, pollinate, particle, matter, wave, particle, matter, wave, be mained. Radio Science Brain, This is the band innate. This is the mindness mate. Radio science brain, radio science brain. Relate, imagination aim, imagination aim, imaginationate. Radio science brain, radio science brain. Dilate. It's a chronicle. It is a journal. It is a memoir. It is a meaning plotting in time. It's documentary art. Oh, good gracious, how is this? What's happening here? Come now, good gray. What's going on here, buddy? Let's try to keep this. How are you doing? Ah, we have some kind of a malfunction happening, maybe? Maybe not. Maybe so. I think there was just a connection issue. I think that's what happened. So, there we go. I am at it. Radio science brain. Thank you for being with us here at the font. This is the sentient freight. Imaginate. Imagination may be game now, mate. Particle matter wave, particle matter wave. Be named your creature, your creature. What ape? This is the sentient frame, imagination main frame, radio science brain germane relay, synaptically liaised imagination as aid, the mindness made
Imagination may be game to play. You are the radiation, you are the radiation, Jermaine. Radio science brain, contain this ache. Imagination, a mind made this container. Contain activation, time release, remain relay, trusted Jermaine. Particle matter waves came today. Limiter radiate, come play. This is the kindness came in case the mind may unerase a displacement we name, we unknown. For bathing in kindness night, in kindness survey the history, the gist of being humane. Human came and won't miss justice with me. Imagination might be radio science brain, Jermaine, activation relay, mind made. Radio science brain, mind made. You are the radiation, you are the radiation, you are the radiation, contagious ray of aim. Radio science brain, mind may be game to play. The love and the curiosity awake. Radio science brain came today to program in this game. Pretend that love is sane. Pretend that love is sane. Radio science brain, pretend that love is sane. Mind made this command, a suggestion at hand. Pretend that love is sane. Pretend that love is sane today. Radio science brain, Jermaine, Jermaine. Radio science brain, relay the game. Mind may hold aim. How aim we? What science? What appliance we handle? How do we manage it? Lemon irradiate. Your mind is into it. Your mind is into this kit. Lemon irradiate. Radio science brain, Jermaine. Radio science brain. Mind may be game to play. Imagination may be game. Imagination may be game. Came to play and ask, do you have a way? Do you have a time and place, a way, a thing to say? How can we allow and let it hold sway? Imagination Inc. Radio silence break. 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 Radio silence brain. Imagination aid. Mind made this case against needless pain. Mind makes the case against an addiction to punishment. Why would be this what we hunt? Why are we what we hunt? Why are we what we hunt? The mind has made me say it's up to us. Where do we aim our weapons? What's the front of this thing we're holding? Do we need to handle a weapon for self-killing? Imagination aim, imagination aim, what its criterion might be the problem. Imagination aid mind made this capital ace. Radio in you owns true. The spinning plates in you. The spinning plates in you. Limina radiate, minus made spinning plates from mad plate to sane activation. Manifest those plates into become, became, remain, relay the same, the germane. Radio science brain, germane, relay. We can wake wax from wane every day. Imagination aim. Radio science brain. You are the radiation, you are the radiation, you are the radiation. You are the radiation. You are the radiation of your imagination. Might wake what will become. Capital ace. Capital, capital, capital ace. Capital ace, capital ace. Good grace. Good grace. Good grace. We are the renovation of love's imagination. That's what I'm picking up. I've seen it expressed. I've heard it opened. I've heard it made gift. And I think that's what's needed. I think art is a public display of affection. And affection is about showing sweet kindness and tenderness and potentially intimacy, potentially personal things, but more so I think kindness, and that can be
distance, that can be many things. But what feels like affection to another, hopefully, or would be recognized as kindness. And that art is refusable makes it just a window you can look through. Like a storefront window you can look through and say, oh, that looks like an interesting place. Maybe I'll go in sometime. Or you can know that you're welcome in there in a way that makes you enter. Or maybe you see that there's a way to hear the music that's happening inside from outside, and you sit down and listen for a time. Or even just the visuals happening in the window from outside create a music that you want to listen to. And that affection is also thus an interaction, and interacting. Affection is changing. It is affecting. It is having an effect on one another. And that. And I've been beneficially affected by art, by music, by theater, dance, what little opera I've seen. A lot of music, films, movies, a lot of movies and television and poems, books. Incredible books. Books can save us. We have to let books help. We have incredible gifts. We just have to open and have to trust that those things are worth fostering. It is radio science brain. You are the sentient frame. I love how you carry it in the panning. Sentient frame, your kit's lit imagination aim. Declare it contagious. Ache your ways contagious. Liminal radiate, liminal radiate, liminal radiate. You are the cane to play ace candidate. You are the mindness, the findings with your kind bandwidth. Liminal radiate, this contagious a calendar Dratus check. In time and space suspect I may have this abject contagion claim radio science brain.
Radio science brain. Jimmy. Radio science brain. Jimmy. Of imagination, it's become. You are the main radio science brain came to play today. You are the dream awake. You can ease any ache, any thirst you build. You can't slake. Let me radiate. You can help your ache bay today with braids of love activate. You are the adulatron. You are the renovation of love's imagination. Contain particle matter wave, panning the sentient stain, spanning the sentient claim, spanning this climb we climb with any and by any name. Radio science brain. Science client, you came in as you, the reliance. You find it and time it. Imagination aim, imagination aim, mind grade, imagination aim. Imagination aim, imagination aim, imagination aim, mind grade came to play today. Imagination aim, some more of the same curiosity that makes prey into play, makes fading into growing games of hope and activation. Radio science brain, we are Innovatron. We are activation, navigate tricks upon. Step by step we plot on, promenade, arcade, active in song, or substrate that is not right or wrong, or if need be we're load bearing, we are codec sharing, we are square sparing, minus made aid from aid. This is the cast somewhere I will go to from there. Imagination dare, I declare. Radio science brain germane, mind domain activate into agency capital made. And as it maybe this yes and has the bandwidth, maybe this is what we wrote for with that script, maybe the dance we choreographed was mimeographed in it, imagination. Nature, your creature would ache to create. Believe known by your germane radio science brain. Line conduit, find it. Radio science brain, studio stadiate the aid, make access place safe. Imagination aim might wait, be your load, lift, or levitate. This is the capital 8. This is the capital 9, the capital 10, the capital 11. Mindness contains, thus mindness contagious compulsion to blunder puns or resonance, imagination honor me. monster, combustible, understood gust, imagination. Adjust.